Edu-Pet Podcast, where we host honest, evidence-informed conversations to help pet parents make better choices for their dog. Today, we are diving into one of the most debated topics in canine health, species-appropriate raw feeding. We are honored to welcome Dr. Nick Thompson, a holistic veterinarian with over 25 years of experience and a global advocate for species-appropriate nutrition. Dr. Nick Thompson is a president of the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, founder of HolisticVet UK, and one of the three pillars of Raw Pet Medics. His work centers on gut health, the canine microbiome, and veterinary homeopathy. So in this episode, we explore his journey, the challenges he's faced, and the future of canine nutrition. Welcome to the Edu-Pet Podcast, Dr. Thompson.
This is the second time we've spoken, and you are doing some great work in India. So it's a great pleasure to join you and to be able to speak to a few people who are interested or who are on the journey within raw food. So it's great to be here, and greetings to all our friends and colleagues in India.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay, let's just jump into it. So, Doctor, first thing I would like to ask is, you've helped a lot of raw feeders, like myself, to get started on our journey to start feeding raw. What got you started on your journey to raw feeding?
It's a good question, Sagar. So if we go back, we go way back. My mother was a nurse and my father was a doctor, human doctor. And my mother particularly was very interested in health food and aromatherapy and homeopathics and herbal medicine and anthroposophical medicine. And so I was raised with knowing that food was very, very important. We didn't eat ultra processed food at home, and so that's where I came from. And so when I went to college, everybody was talking about feeding kibble, and we had a lecture by a kibble company, which was some of the few practical small animal nutrition lectures we got, I have to say. I'd be interested to hear how much practical nutrition in small animals my colleagues in India get, but maybe that's for later. So I got a very little practical nutrition education, and so then I got told kibble at college, as you can imagine.
Yes.
And then I went back into practice, and again it was kibble. This was the early 90s. Okay, it's a long time ago, and kibble was the great hope for nutrition, and everybody drank the Kool-Aid, as they say. Everybody believed that this really was it. They told us that it was a science diet. They told us that it was formulated by vets, and it was complete and balanced, and we didn't question it. It was the great thing, and everybody agreed it was the great thing. And then I was studying homeopathy at the Royal London Homeopathic Hospital next to Great Ormond Street in London. And one of the guys went to Australia. One of the guys that I was training with went to Australia, and he came back with this funny white book by a funny guy.
I know the book.
Yeah, of course you do. Of course you do. And he came back with this funny white book called The Bath Diet, and another one, Grow Your Pup with Bones. And I looked at it and I thought, this is a fad. This is just people with too much time on their hands who want to feed food just because it's not scientifically formulated. I can't remember exactly, but I looked at it and I dismissed it essentially. And then further in the course for homeopathy, we came across a concept of eliminating obstacles to cure, which is strong in homeopathy. And I believe that in fact I know, because there are several of my mentors in homeopathy, Dr. Banerjee, Dr. Ramakrishnan, and many others, come from India. It's got a very strong tradition
Right.
of homeopathy, which is wonderful.
Yes.
But uh, within homeopathy, there is a concept of eliminating obstacles to cure. And one day within that course, when I was just a baby veterinary homeopath, it suddenly struck me, all the teaching that I had learnt as a child, just subconsciously, it suddenly struck me that we should not be feeding this, what we now called ultra processed food. Back then, the word ultra processed didn't even
Yeah.
exist, but it suddenly struck me that this was formulated synthetic food, and it could be causing problems with my patients. Therefore, it was an obstacle to cure. How can you treat an animal if the nutrition is fundamentally not species appropriate, if it's not
Yes.
real food? And it was like a road to Damascus. In the Bible it talks about, I think it was Peter was on the road to Damascus, and God struck him down and said, you must, follow the way, follow the path, whatever it might be. I had my road to Damascus conversion to Raw when I suddenly realized, and it was an overnight thing. And I can remember the realization that, oh my goodness, all the teachings of kibble and synthetic and ultra processed food was synthetic. Yeah, even the teaching was synthetic. And so and it just struck me, we need to feed real food
Real food.
in
Yeah.
order to be able to allow our dogs and our cats the greatest opportunity to be the healthiest that they can possibly be. So that was the mid 90s. That was maybe 95, 96. And from then onwards, and that is now 30 years ago. Is that right? Yeah, yeah, 30 years ago. So I was converted when I was a young vet. I was converted to the cause of feeding species appropriate food overnight, and the rest is history. The rest, I've just been following what my head and my heart know to be true, to be honest, to be evolutionarily appropriate, to be simple, to be not synthetic, not corporate science food, to be feeding food. It took me to unlearn all that stuff, to just go back to what my grandmother could have told me, which was, you've got to eat good food if you want good health. It is
Yes.
that simple, Sagar. But that's a story that I haven't told very much in that kind of detail. So I thank you for the opportunity to be able to get that off my chest. Thank you.
So, doctor, I've practically watched all your videos. I've watched all your podcasts.
Thank you.
This is not a story that I've heard before, and
Uh-huh.
hence we put down questions that we really want to get to know you. We want our audience to know you. We want the professionals in this industry to know. Uh, we've all come from similar beginnings,
Yes.
and and you have reached to um, to the pinnacle of what this industry is today, and every one of us has the potential to do so only if we do right by our pets.
Yeah, I think if you look at nutrition critically, look at food critically, I think there is only one conclusion that you can come to when you step away from the brainwashing. If you think of it, the big food corporations who make kibble and canned food, they've had in the UK, they've had 50 years of brainwashing us to say that this
Yeah.
ultra processed food is the way to feed, and they're very clever, and they will use every advantage, every marketing ploy to make you think that this is the right way to feed, and so you have to unlearn that. And so I would challenge my respected colleagues in India to look critically at raw food, look critically at fresh, lightly cooked food, and look critically at kibble and canned food, and with an open mind, uh, make make an assessment, a true assessment from a nutrition, from an evolutionary perspective, so that they can make an independent judgment of what really is the best thing to feed our pets. And I think that it's very difficult to come to the conclusion that feeding ultra processed food is a good idea.
Yes, but doctor, whenever we approach these bets with some evidence, they always see it as anecdotal data. So what what is the like what do we tell them? Like it's like shutting the door in our face when they say it is anecdotal data.
Yeah, it is uh, there is a lot of anecdotal data because the millions of people who have taken a leap of faith to feed raw food and seen visible improvements in their dogs, that's anecdote. But there comes a point, Sagar, I think you'll agree that when you have millions of anecdotes, that somewhere along the line turns into data. Okay, even epidemiologists would agree with that. So that's number one. There's a point at which anecdote turns into data. But if they are dyed-in-the-wool fans of kibble and they are going along with their training, just as I was trained, they that's not good enough because for them it's still data. Therefore, one can look at very easily the science. There are dozens of studies now demonstrating the the impact that species appropriate raw food feeding has. There are studies showing improvements in dental tartar. There are studies showing changes, improved changes in blood picture. There are studies showing that the microbiome and gut function is improved, which anybody who feeds raw, who've come from kibble, will be able to tell you as well. But they can put the science. They've measured changes in all these parameters. So it is no longer possible for a critically thinking science-based vet to come along and say there is no science behind raw food. 20 years ago, maybe there was. And I would point them respectfully to the dog risk, the dog risk group
University of Helsinki. Yeah.
in Helsinki University. It's led by Dr. Anna Heim Bjorkman, who is
Yes.
researching, and they're publishing papers, two or three every year, which are a good science and the papers are published in peer-reviewed journals demonstrating that there is an advantage, a health advantage to feeding raw food. However, if you go to the big food companies and ask them for studies demonstrating that kibble and canned food is superior to raw, they won't be able to give you one study. So, dozens and dozens and dozens of studies showing raw is better than ultra processed, zero studies showing that ultra processed is better than real food. And I would challenge my colleagues respectfully to to look at that data and reflect on it. It's very difficult to do because if you're wedded to the idea that the science diet in the waiting room really is the best thing, you have to climb down from a very, very high horse, very high mountain with humility to begin climbing the mountain of raw food, which is a
Yes.
very enjoyable, wonderful mountain to climb. But that's what has to happen. There needs to be professional scientific humility to reappraise the data that is currently available to vets. Yeah, we've now got Google, we've got ChatGPT. You cannot fail to realize that these studies are out there, and you can do the same study, you can do the same search to say, please tell me, show me studies where ultra processed kibble cans are superior. Okay, so vets and the general public at home can do these studies. When I first started in practice, the internet didn't even exist. 1992, I think it was used in just some laboratories, and that was about it. So we have access to so much data, and we can use it. We, professionals and lay people can use it to prove for themselves. Yeah, don't believe me. You can do the research yourself. So the
Yes.
data's there. So if colleagues say to you, it's anecdote, there are no studies, that's actually incorrect as a statement.
Yes. So, Doctor, who were your heroes when you started off on this journey? I
Well,
probably know one of them, but
one of them is Ian Billinghurst,
yes, and
who
you have the pleasure of working with him now.
I do absolutely. I have the honor of considering Ian a friend, and I speak to him periodically. He's a very busy guy these days. He's even more busy now than he was when he wrote the book in the late 80s and 90s. So Ian is an inspiration to me. Who else are leading lights? I think Rodney Habib and Karen Becker are they are powerhouses. They are doing some incredible work to put science onto what many people see with their own eyes. They see their dog improving, but Karen and Rodney and I and many people within the raw feeding community are trying to put the science there, because it's one thing seeing it with your eyes. It's another thing for science to recognize. Like every morning, Sagar, you see the sunrise and it's obvious. Yeah, sun goes up, but that's not good enough for science. What science has to do, and I think it was Galileo back in the day said, no, it's actually the sun goes around the earth, and that's why we have the impression that the sun rises. That's okay. Yeah, because we can look at what happens in front of our very eyes from one perspective, and then science can come along and say, yes, this is why you see what's in front of your eyes, and this is the scientific explanation for what's happening in front of your eyes. And I think it's important to marry those two things. And there when you're dealing with what really exists in the world, the scientific perspective and the everyday perception of reality, they come together, and that is what's happening with raw food. That what everybody sees when they change over to raw is being justified through scientific means, which is so reassuring.
Yes, I agree, doctor. There is a change coming, and yeah, I, I, I think we are ahead of the time. So hopefully, a lot of people end up following us and seeing the light.
I hope so. I hope so. But if they don't, and they've examined the data, then that's okay. If you choose
Yes.
to, if you
Yes, I completely agree. I do not expect everyone to switch on to raw, but do better than kibble. Introduce
yes,
fresh food, introduce slow cooked food,
yeah, yeah,
dehydrated, freeze dried. There are so many options available today which are which have the same convenience of kibble
agree, agree.
and are much healthier for your pets.
I completely agree. Completely agree. And at the end of the day, Sagar, the uh, it's really simple. Feeding feeding real food is really simple. People in the UK and in the USA are initially are very stressed when they move to raw food because they think it's difficult, but then they go to the kitchen and feed themselves. Okay,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
it's the we've lost our instinct and the tradition, which I think you guys in India retain much more than us, of buying and cooking real food every day. We've really lost that, and it's because of American, European, corporate influence. But I think that in India, you still value the tradition of real food, and I would suggest hold on to that with both hands because it's very, very important. Food is important nutritionally, but it helps bring families and communities together. So yeah, you're very lucky to have that tradition in India. We will find in America and the UK. Well, I can't talk about America because I'm not American, but I think in the UK there is some move back towards real food. There really is a sea change, and that's wonderful. But if like you, you guys in India, if you haven't lost it or you haven't lost it much
Yes.
in India, then it's easier to go back to real food for your family, for your community, and for your pets. That's the important thing to make sure that we're feeding real food, and
Yes.
it's not difficult to do. Like I say, it's not difficult to feed real food, and as long as you get your macronutrients more or less correct, that's fat and protein and carbohydrates. As long as you get those pretty much correct and you vary things every day, every week, every month, if you have your macros, those three macronutrients correct, and you have variety, then you're probably on a very good path towards better health.
Yes. Agreed. Okay, doctor. So, how were your initial years of promoting Raw? Uh, did you also face uh, the same backlash from the veterinary community that we are facing today?
Well, the backlash was very, very strong in the early days. So I started to put my head above the parapet in perhaps 2000. And vets were really anti. Most vets, not all, most vets were very anti. And I remember going to the BSA VA Congress, and vets would shout at you and storm off because you were daring to promote raw food. So things have improved. Yeah, the veterinary profession is at the very least, is more tolerant of raw food, and there are many more vets now who are pro raw. However, that took 25 years to gradually turn this enormous oil tanker just a tiny bit. So uh, if vets in India are vehemently anti, and you're getting a lot of pushback, and it's the same in South Africa actually. The idea of raw is relatively new, perhaps in those countries, and therefore it's going to take a while for the profession to catch up with what's happening with the man on the street, with what's happening with the man on the street. So take your time, stay true to a real, true, honest message, and I think good things will happen. So keep up, keep up. EduPet is doing great
Thank you.
work. I see your posts on social media, and yeah, you're doing great work. Well done.
Doctor, half my posts are reposts of what you do. So because we do end up following similar people. So
Okay. Yeah.
okay, if you had to advise younger vets or pet owners on raw feeding today, what would you
Yeah.
tell them?
Okay. So to my advice to young vets is as I said earlier, is look at the pros and cons of raw. There are pros, there are cons. Look at the pros and cons of fresh food. Look at the pros and cons of kibble food, and look at the pros and cons of canned food. Okay, that's all. That's 8 tiny pieces of research. Do that, put them all on the table, and say, with an open scientific mind, that's very interesting. I can see all those things. That I can see all the pros lined up together. I can see the cons lined up together, and go with where your scientific education takes you. I would suggest that would be so for young vets. That would be my advice. Also, speak to as a young vet. Um, speak to other vets who are very pro kibble, but also speak to other vets who are very pro fresh or raw food feeding. I would suggest, and because it's all about education, and be prepared to change your mind, because who was it? Somebody said a man who can't change his mind cannot change anything. I think it was Abraham Lincoln, but don't quote me on that. Um, to uh, my, what was the last part of the question? What so to
For the
young vets
pet owners.
and the pet owners? What's my advice? My advice um, is to do a little bit of homework before you just start. To talk to companies who are offering raw food. EduPet seem to be doing great work. I haven't come over to see you, but from the online material, excellent online material that you are producing, Saga, there's some really great. But don't get all your information from one
Thank you.
source. Don't get it from me. Don't get it from him.
Yes.
Look at different sources. Talk to the big food corporations and say, why should I feed? What is the evidence that I should feed your food over raw and fresh food? And then go to the raw food manufacturers and say, why should I feed your food above kibble and cans? Okay. And see
Correct.
who gives you the best, the most scientifically satisfactory answers. Do your reading. There are some great books around. The Dr. Connor Brady has done Feeding Dogs. I'm halfway through writing my book. It's about ultra processed food, and it's about what are the alternatives and why you should feed those alternatives. So that might be coming out this year.
Okay.
Um, so I'm really enjoying the writing process. Um, who else to read? Uh, Rodney Habib and Karen Becker have done the forever
Forever
living
dog.
dog,
Yeah.
and then forever living life.
Forever dog life.
No, the forever dog. So the first one was forever dog, and the
Yeah.
second one was forever dog life.
Yes.
And I believe there's a third one in the pipeline. So that's worth it. So those books, and there are others. Dr. Judy Morgan has written some great work. Ian Billinghurst as obviously he is the godfather of Raw. Dr. Tom Lonsdale was also he was there early on in the in Raw. Dr. Richard Patton, Patton. He's written a book which I read very early on. Actually, you were talking about mentors, so his book was, and the title of his book I can never remember, but the title, it's in an orange, and it's very difficult to get hold of these days. It's in an orange cover, and it's something like evolved in difficult times and now faced with plenty. Okay, but it's a very snappy title which reflects that dogs and humans have evolved in a nutrient poor environment, and we now live in a very nutrient rich environment, which is why obesity is such a problem, and that a lot of the inappropriate nutrients are now available, which is why so many dogs are obese, so many people are obese, why so many people have type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's and cancer and heart disease, and so many dogs have obesity, overweight problems, renal disease, IBD, recurrent gut problems, because we are eating inappropriate ultra processed foods. So there's just that's just a few thoughts for young vets to think broadly and openly, and for people who are just starting their raw food journey, real wonderful non-vets. Do your homework before you start is my advice. And if you're not a big reader, then you can get audiobooks, or you can just talk to people. Yeah, talk to people who've been feeding for a few years, and they will give you some good advice and good information. And nowadays you have there's lots of podcasts, there are audiobooks, as I say, there's YouTube. So there's a lot of information now that one can learn about raw, possibly too much, because a lot of people are just confused.
Yeah.
So vets, do your reading, open your scientific mind, and to people who are not so scientifically educated, then do your reading. Yeah, why feed this, not this? Ask those questions. If your vet is open to a conversation, to have a chat with them, have a chat with my friends at EduPet, and I'm sure there are a number of very good raw food companies in India. It's a big place, I'm told. Never would been. Love to come.
No, no, doctor. There are just two of us.
There are would love to come in the whole of India, because you.
There's just two.
Oh my goodness, I'm
Yes.
amazed. I'm amazed because
We have a long way to go, doctor. We have a long way to go.
Yeah, in the old days, you would just have to have conversation. Talking to a billion people, that's going to take you a few years. But now you've got the internet, you can speak to 20,000 people all in one
Yes.
go. So it's swings and roundabouts. I hear in India you guys have tipped 1 billion people. Is that correct?
1.4 billion the last I checked.
1.4. Wow. Okay. My figures
Yes.
are out of date. So you're 1.4 billion. And is that
I'm,
more
I'm, we are not very proud of it, but
than?
but it is what it is.
Well, I imagine
Yes.
it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, doctor, we often speak about species appropriate diets,
Yeah.
but there is a huge, I wouldn't say huge, but there is a sizable community um, which promotes vegan foods for dogs. And whenever we have a conversation with them, they bring up Bramble's example, saying that, oh, the oldest living dog was fed a vegan diet.
Okay,
And
I don't know
what would you say
Bramble's
to these people?
story. The oldest
Okay.
living dog that I'm aware of is Bobby, who was a Spanish dog who was fed a meat, mainly a meat and vegetable stew, uh, for his entire life, and he lived to, I think, 37. Okay,
Okay.
but so Bramble, I can't comment on Bramble because I don't know Bramble's story. But let's just talk about vegan dogs or vegan humans. I'm not talking about vegetarian because they will get some animal derived protein from dairy
Yes.
and from eggs. Okay, so vegetarian is fine. And if you as a human being choose to eat vegan food, that's absolutely fine. You can look at the benefits for you of veganism and the disbenefits for you of veganism, and you can make a choice. Your dog cannot. And what I think you've got to remember is that dogs are facultative carnivores. Okay, I'll just take you through that for people who are watching. They may not be familiar with this nomenclature. So you've got cows and sheep. They are herbivores because they eat vegetable material, full stop. On the other end of the scale, you've got cats who have evolved to just eat mice and lizards and rats and what have you. Okay, in evolutionary terms. Okay, so you've got those at either end of the scale. Somewhere in the middle, depending on where on earth you are and what kind of food sources you've got human beings, and they are omnivores, which means that they can survive on meat-based foods, and they can do very well on vegetable, and they do they generally do well on a bit of both. Yeah, some meat, some veg, some meat, some veg, and what have you. But it's a sliding scale, so some humans choose to be more herbivorous and they are vegetarian. And some people choose to be more carnivorous, and we call those carnivores. Carnivore diet is very popular in Europe and America at the moment. Okay, but you can choose because you're an omnivore, so you can go somewhere in the middle. Dogs are interesting because they're a special case. They're not obligate carnivores like cats, and they're not obligate herbivores like horses and cattle, but they're not omnivores like humans. Yeah, some food companies will say dogs can eat carbohydrates, therefore you can feed them loads of carbohydrates like we do with kibble. I don't subscribe to that point of view. And some of the best science puts the dog on the border between carnivory and at the top end of omnivory, i.e., a very carnivorous omnivore diet. And I think that the truth of the matter, after thinking about this question a lot for a lot of years, is that dogs will eat anything they can get hold of, but given the choice, they will live in a mostly carnivorous world as a source of their calories and their nutrients, given a choice. So with my dogs, if I put some vegetables, lightly cooked vegetables, in the bowl with some meat, they will always go for the meat first. And if they're still hungry, they might begrudgingly take some veggies. Okay. And that kind of tells me that that's what they would choose. So I'm not sure if that uh, no, your question was about Bramble and veganism. Okay, so veganism is one stage more extreme than vegetarianism because people who are vegan, they don't eat eggs and they don't have dairy and they don't have honey. And like I say, if you choose to be vegan, good for you. I think the idea and I don't really like the idea of vegetarian dogs, but let's talk about vegan dogs. These are no animal products. I don't think anybody should make their dog vegan because it is the antithesis, it is the opposite of how dogs have evolved to eat. It's like having a Ferrari, and because you have a problem with fossil fuels, you choose to run your Ferrari on water. Okay, I think that's a fairly good analogy. It probably doesn't stand
or
up to
seed oil.
scrutiny. Very good, even better. Even I'm going to steal your analogy. So you have a Ferrari, and because you choose against fossil fuels, you choose to use seed oils to run your Ferrari. And I believe that your Ferrari is going to break down and not run very well on seed oils, which is also the case for human beings because seed oils are very high in omega-6. They are pro-inflammatory. And so I think humans don't do very well on seed oils, omega-6 seed oils. So um, with dogs, feeding vegan food, I think is a stunningly bad idea. Even if you make it yourself, I just think you wouldn't give a racehorse steak thinking that you're going to make the horse run better. Okay, because steak is more calorie dense and it has fat, which is the most calorie dense fuel nutrient that we can take. You wouldn't feed a horse on steak, so why would you feed a dog on lentils? Lentils as part of a good, mainly carnivorous raw. I can go with a few cooked lentils, but feeding just plant-based material to a dog, I think is wrong. I don't think it's even, oh no, don't do it. I think we shouldn't do it. I think we should mitigate
Yeah.
against it. We should argue against vegan diets for dogs. In the UK and in the USA, they're coming along. And on paper, they look like they are balanced, but they're using soy protein and pea protein in order to get protein levels up. They're using a lot of premixes to make sure that the iodine and the zinc and the B vitamins, B12, for example, is a problem that vegan people have. So they have to artificially make it. So it's actually it's actually impossible to make a vegan diet for humans who are omnivores without some degree of supplementation in
Supplements.
most cases. And it's impossible to feed a dog a vegan diet without using quite a lot of synthetic material. Okay, so that's a very long way of saying no vegan dogs, please. In my book, you may think differently. Good for you, but that's my thought.
Yes. So doctor, we have a lot of vegetarian people in India,
You do.
and a lot of the times people do ask us for vegetarian diets,
Okay.
and mostly because there are due to certain religious beliefs, they do not bring meat in the house.
Yes,
So our simple answer to them is, do not force your beliefs onto your dogs.
I completely
Feeding,
agree. I was,
yeah,
yeah,
feeding a carnivorous animal a vegetarian diet is animal cruelty. So you're not doing your religion any favors by forcing your beliefs onto an animal.
I completely agree. I think that if you don't want to bring meat in the house, you shouldn't bring a carnivore in the
Yes.
house. So get a rabbit, get a
Yeah.
goat,
Yes.
get yeah, yeah, get a gerbil, get a horse. Yeah, don't get a
Yeah.
carnivore. Again,
Yeah.
if you've got a Ferrari, you don't put seed oil in it. If you've got a Ferrari, you use the best fuel you can afford. The
Yes.
super duper sports car stuff. Okay. And and dogs, their metabolism makes a Ferrari's mechanism look like child's play. They are much, 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 much more finely balanced. They're much more subtle, much more the machinery is much more clever. It still makes my mind boggle how we live, how we derive energy, how we turn food that we put in our mouth into running running around, taking dogs for walks and what have you. It's a miracle. So it's an absolute miracle. And and so uh yeah, I agree. If
Yes.
you don't want to bring meat into the house, that's absolutely fine. Don't get a dog. Get
Yes.
a rabbit, get a sheep, get a goldfish, get a horse, whatever. Yeah. Enjoy animals within your home, within your farm, within your small holding, what have you. Don't get a Ferrari if you can't put the right fuel in it.
Yes. Agreed. Okay, so doctor, let's jump into the last and final question for today,
Mm.
the
Mm.
RFVS. Would
Ah,
you mind telling us a little more about the RFVS? Like what is the purpose of Raw Feeding Veterinary Society? What now? You are the president of the RFVS again,
yes.
so congratulations on that. And
Thank you.
what are your goals for the RFVS for this year?
I've been the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, and you can find the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society at rfbs.info. I've been the president again because I was one of the founding members of the society. I've been the president again for 13 days, and we're really trying to change things. The guys who came before us did some fabulous work, and there is some very strong foundations that have been laid down there. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to open the doors of the Raw Feeding Society very wide, so that vets, vet nurses, dog owners, pet parents, raw stores, manufacturers like yourself, you can come and join, and we want to form a hub where we can all speak together, learn together, um, share triumphs and share mistakes, so that we can feed pets a species appropriate, evolutionarily appropriate diet. That's it. So it's a very inclusive, broad church, if you like, and we are very excited for the next year or two. I'm president for the next 2 years, so in the next 2 years, we want to really open the doors wide and invite everybody. If you're watching this in India, you can join us, and it's actually free to join. There's some basic information, and you're very welcome to come along and have a look around within the forums that we provide. And if you want to speak to people, if you're a vet and you want to speak to other vets, we are going to create chat rooms where vets can talk together privately. If you're a breeder, you can talk to other breeders. If you're a raw store owner, you can talk to other raw store owners. If you're a manufacturer, you can speak to other manufacturers if you like. I find manufacturers don't really generally want to speak to other manufacturers, but it may be that Indian manufacturers do want to speak to European manufacturers, or British manufacturers want to speak to American manufacturers, or whatever it might be. I think we need to break down any barriers that seem to be forming. There are divisions within the raw world. You've got the Frank and Prey people don't like the raw meaty bone people, who may not like the DIY formula people, whatever. I think it's nonsense. I think let's look at the 80% that we do agree on. And if you want
Yes.
to have a slightly different opinion on vegetables for dogs, that's good for you. No problem. You know?
Doctor, I So, what you said about manufacturers is spot on. We are working with a lot of brands in India, and we did have our challenges when we first reached out to them.
Yeah,
Because myself being one of the manufacturers, so people tend to look at each other as competition.
yeah.
And so the only thing I tell everyone is we have a much bigger adversary in ahead of us. Let us first fight that adversary, and then we can sort out whatever's once we have the spoils of war, then we can see how to distribute the spoils of
I
war.
think that if you've got 1.4 billion people in India, I think that the market is probably big enough for two manufacturers. That's the first thing to say, is that it's a pity that my colleagues in my veterinary colleagues in India are against raw food, but that's exactly what happened 2 decades ago in this country. And I think that if you and I continue to talk to these colleagues calmly and scientifically, and if Dogrist continues to be producing quality peer-reviewed papers on a regular basis, there will come a time that they will not be able to um, ignore the weight of evidence for raw food.
Yes, I agree, doctor. So we would be more than happy to be a part of RFVS, and we would be more than happy to promote RFVS in our small community in India.
Please do, please do. We welcome you with open arms. So if people are watching this, they want to join the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society. It's free. Yeah, just come in. There's a lot of basic advice there. You're welcome to take that and run, and you don't even have to say hello. However, if you do want to say hello, that makes us even happier, because we'd like to embrace our colleagues, our partners, our friends in India, so that we have an Indian voice within the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, because I think it's very important that we get American views, we get UK views, we get French views, we get Patagonian views, you name it. I think that we've all got we none of us have all the answers, and I think that the more people we have talking together, the more we can learn. So Segar, you and EduPet, we would love to have you along at the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society. It doesn't cost a fortune to be part of the raw feeding solution, um, but it's it's important we come together and we support each other. So you're very, very welcome.
Thank you, doctor. So thank you, Dr. Thompson, for sharing your knowledge and perspective with us. Your work continues to inspire parents and professionals to think more holistically about canine health. And thank you, everyone, for listening to us. Keep asking questions, and we'll see you in the next episode of the EduPet Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.